Hey everyone, my name is Mike Vandelander, and I'm the product manager for the Connect applications here at Jamf. Today I'm going to take a few minutes to walk everyone through the different Connect products, and we're going to see how we can configure and validate our settings. We're going to upload and deploy our configurations, and then walk through a few examples of authenticating to our different cloud identity providers. This is meant to be an interactive lab, so most everything that I do on screen today is something that you can try on your own. You can do it through installing Connect and our helper applications on a box that you have, or we've set up an interactive sandbox. To get access to that sandbox, you can go to the link that I assume has been provided to you beforehand, but it's on the screen here for me, which is the jamf.it/Connect Lab 2021. Just keep the Connect and Lab uppercase, and that should bring you right to the sandbox. And that'll let you just click through the application as I'm talking and see exactly for yourself how you're able to change your configuration settings and deploy them through, say, Jamf Pro. So with that, for those who are new to Connect, Connect is a set of applications for the Mac that help integrate the local user accounts on your Mac with your chosen identity provider. Using a known set of credentials, your end users are able to provision themselves new user accounts on their Mac with the correct administrator or standard permissions. They can keep the local passwords for their login, keychain, and file vault all in sync with credentials for their network accounts through your identity provider. They can kick off single sign-on through Octa and Kerberos, and you can even log into your Mac without a password just by using your iPhone through Connect and Unlock. So going over to our screen share here, again, jamf.it/Connect Lab 2021. Check it out for yourself. That's going to be available even past today's session. So if you want to kind of continue to click through, experience the different identity providers between Google, Octa, Azure AD on your own, you are absolutely free to do so. Okay, so to begin, we're going to hide Stickies. What you would want to do this on your own is sign into account.jamf.com because that gives you access to all of your assets. And if Connect is a product that you own and have access to, there's a nice blue download button for you to get access to the disk image. The disk image includes the installer package as well as the application that we use for configuring Connect, which is Jamf Connect configuration. So both of those items are available inside of that disk image. That should be your first stop. You can double click to install Connect on a test machine. That's also what you can use to deploy through, say, Jamf Pro. And then Connect configuration is something we're going to take a look at here to build and test our first configuration files. The other thing you're going to be able to find inside of your Jamf account by the time that you are viewing this is the ability to download the license files for Connect. So if you're setting up a deployment and you need to be able to deploy the license files for the client applications on your Mac, there's going to be a download button. That's also something that's going to be useful inside of Connect configuration when we go through building our profiles, as well as Jamf Pro when we want to build profiles there instead. So we've got the necessary items. The first thing that we want to do is check in with the configuration application. So you may have already installed it by dragging to your applications folder. I have it down here on my dock just because I use it so much. And what you can see inside of configuration is a library of the different profiles that you built for yourself for the different identity providers. I have examples for each of the supported IDPs inside of Connect today. You may create different configuration profiles for yourself, for different groups, or for just different testing purposes. What I'll point out is as you click through the drop downs inside of configuration for those identity providers, the list of required fields and just some of the options and features themselves will change depending on your selection. So again, with Azure as an example, I have an OpenID Connect and RPG client ID listed. If I click on Octa, I don't have those fields. I'll only be asked for my Octa authentication server. So be mindful of that as you're going through to configure Connect, what those requirements are prior to creating your configuration profiles. If you have questions or need to kind of get that all figured out on the identity side, go to the help menu and Connect up at the top, click on Jamf Connect Help. That'll bring you to our administrator guide. And then we have guides there to tell you how to create those app registrations for your preferred identity provider. Okay, so inside of configuration, it's broken up into different tabs for basic identity provider integration settings, and then the functions and behaviors of the different components of Connect itself. For Connect, we have a login window plugin that's used for provisioning user accounts and then using the IDP as a gateway to determine who can sign into a Mac on an ongoing basis. If you want to use multi-factor authentication to gate access to a Mac, then backing up to an IDP and using those existing methods that you have for your other single sign-on services may be preferred. By enabling login, we can go through the whole process of deciding if we want to have local passwords sync, what attributes from the identity and access token that we want to create those local user accounts. There's a whole host of options that, again, the admin guide is going to give you the best insight on. But as you kind of go through the configuration app, you can hover over any one of these buttons or labels, and it will give you a short name that you can look inside of to get a better description. Okay, so let's say I've gone through and pre-configured one of my applications for one of these identity providers. We have the kind of click-through form-based UI here, and then in the upper right-hand corner, you can click and get a text preview as well. If you're more comfortable working withplists, or just want to see kind of a raw output of what's inside your configuration profile, having that toggle can make it very useful for troubleshooting purposes and just validating that the settings that you want to have included in your configuration profile are actually there. Once I feel I have all the settings kind of where I want them, I don't need to go through the whole deployment process to validate it. We have configuration mostly as a sandbox for you to test your credentials and validate that you're able to get access and ID and refresh tokens through those configuration settings. So there's a test button in the upper right-hand corner. When you click on that, you're going to see the different options depending on the identity provider you've chosen. If it's Octa, we use the Octa Authentication API. That's going to be the top option. If we're using any other identity provider, Azure, OneLogin, Google, IBM, then you would want to use the OpenID Connect test. That's our quickest way to ensure that we're able to load the right login point that you can use your credentials to sign in. So here's my Microsoft authentication portal. I'll sign in with a set of credentials that should work. I get forwarded to our federated login, or I don't. Log in with the credentials for that account. If you have multi-factor authentication, if you need to go through any sort of OAuth consent, you're going to see that the first time that you sign in using the test function. And if it works, you'll get a message saying you have tokens, and then it'll actually display previews of all of those tokens. So you can inspect your ID token for the right attributes. Are your names matching? Are your positions or office locations, whatever details you want to have about your user as a part of that authentication process, is that included in the attributes in the ID token? If it's not, maybe you've got to make some adjustments regarding scopes or different token mappings on the identity provider side. But this is just a quick, check that you're able to sign in with your service accounts or known accounts and credentials and make sure that you're receiving the response that is expected. I could try each one of these for our different identity providers, but let's say this is good and it's what I want to be able to at least deploy and test in a smaller environment. Then I can say go to File, Save, and we have the option to export the settings for that identity provider for the different Connect components. So if you need it for Connect login, that's one preference domain. The com.jamf.connect menu bar application, that's just the Jamf Connect option. And then Jamf Unlock, which is our iOS app that allows for passwordless authentication to your Mac. We can export the managed app config that's required to be pushed alongside of the application from your MDM provider, say Jamf Pro, to make sure the app is in a managed state and knows which identity provider to have the user authenticate to. So you can choose any one of those applications you're exporting the settings for, and you can also choose the format that you want that file to be. If it's a configuration profile, best for MDM and Jamf Pro, you may need to sign that configuration profile before uploading it to Jamf Pro so that all of the details are contained and not altered as they are uploaded and deployed to your devices. If you're more comfortable working with plists, you can also export that as well, and it just saves as a text file that can also be imported into your MDM. So I'll just pick plist. Ooh, I don't have an RPG ID. That's okay. I don't have ROPG for Google. So I'll say we'll export our Azure settings for Connect, again, as a plist. Very good. So that's using configuration to at least test your initial settings for an identity provider, and then saving that configuration out as a reusable file for your MDM provider, and based on which component of Connect you're trying to use. We can do that inside of config. We also have the ability to create those configurations directly inside of Jamf Pro. So if you sign into your Jamf Pro server, go to Computers, go to Configuration, Profiles. If I wanted to use the profile or the settings that I just created inside of Connect configuration, I could choose Upload, and I could pick my mobile config file that was signed and exported. If I want to create and manage and edit on an ongoing basis my configurations inside of Jamf Pro instead, then I have the option to create a new configuration profile, go down to Application and Custom Settings. There's a newer option for Jamf Applications. In Jamf Applications, you're going to find the different Connect components. So again, our com.jamf.connect preference domain, as well as the com.jamf.connect.login preference domain. Pick the one that's applicable to the application that you're configuring. You can also choose which version of Connect you're configuring. If keys were added or changed over time, or you're just starting with a new deployment, just pick the most recent one, and that way you'll have all the right settings available to you. Variant, we don't have any variants in Connect, so you can just pick the JSON file that's listed there. What you'll find in Jamf Pro is just all the same settings that we were looking at in Jamf Connect configuration, but the difference is you can do it all inside of the web app. You don't have to have the native app on a Mac. You don't have as much of a test box or sandbox available to you. There is a test option to make sure that you can sign into your single sign-on provider, but it's more limited. It does still have the form view. It also has the plist view if you want to get the raw text as well. So all of that can be configured and updated inside of Jamf Pro. The other option there is to upload. So you created the plist file inside of the configuration application. If I click on Add, I'd be able to define the preference domain that I want to affect, and then bring in the plist file that I had created from Connect configuration. And in that way, the settings are there, and again, I can deploy them to my devices. So that's creating configurations in Jamf Connect configuration, rather briefly, as well as inside of Jamf Pro, again, briefly. But that gets you to a baseline where you can at least start deploying your settings to your Macs. The next part about deployment is the application itself. You have your settings. You want to be able to have an application installed on your Macs. In Jamf Pro 10.30 or later, you can go to your settings in the upper right-hand corner. You need to make sure that your cloud services connection has been enabled. So you will have to have signed in with your Jamf ID or Jamf Nation credentials to get that all connected. Once done, if you have Jamf Connect as one of your available assets, then in the Jamf Applications section, you would see Jamf Connect. And inside of Jamf Connect is going to be a list of the different configuration profiles that you have either created or uploaded to Jamf Pro. Now, what's great about this is those profiles are now being used or can be used as targets for scoping the installation of Jamf Connect. So if I've created a configuration profile and I've scoped it to all of my Macs I want to have Connect installed on, that same configuration profile is going to be displayed in my deployment settings for Jamf Pro. I can choose that configuration profile as my target, and now I'm able to select which version of Connect it is that I want to have installed on those Macs. So I'll pick the most recent, which is 2.4.5. And you can also choose what the update cadence is. So if you want every release that's available for Connect as we make them or ship them. Minor maintenance would be that selection. If you wanted only maintenance releases, so the example here is 2.4.5 is a maintenance release. 2.5, when that's available, will be 2.4.5 is a minor release. 2.5 will be a maintenance release. So you can just elect to have kind of a, not every update, keep it kind of on a slower cadence. Now, once you make that selection, you click confirm, it is going to deploy Connect, and it will keep Connect on those Macs that are in scope up to date according to your update preferences. So this really does make the deployment and management of Connect updates really easy as long as your configuration profiles are set up to support that. So deal with your configuration profiles in their scope, and then choose to have Connect deployed to those particular configuration profiles. And as Connect makes updates available, your devices will automatically take part in those versions of Connect. Okay, so if we have configured and deployed Connect to our devices, then we want to take a look at what it's actually like to use Connect on any of these devices. So let me close the browser. I already have Connect installed on this Mac. And like I said, there's a couple different components. There's the menu bar application as well as the login window. Menu bar is used to keep your passwords in sync on an ongoing basis and to sign you in to get Kerberos tickets and to begin your Octa authentication sessions. It's also how you enable the use of unlock for passwordless authentication to your Mac. The other component is the login window. It's not really anything that's easy to demo in a screen share because you have to log out of your active user account. But I do have a couple recordings that I want to quick show so that you'd be able to see what that experience is like for signing in through each of those identity providers. And again, if you're walking through the interactive lab, you would have the ability to see this for yourself as well. So the login window, again, we're a plugin for the macOS login window. It's post File Vault if you have that configured. So cold boot the Mac, unlock the disk using File Vault, and then the next thing you would see is your Jamf Connect login window. It's going to provide a web view for signing into the identity provider that you've selected. Users sign in with the credentials that they know for signing into that single sign-on provider. And then we go through the process of generating the local user account based off the credentials that they use to sign into the identity provider. So usernames all match up, and as well as passwords. The process by which we are able to match the local password to the identity provider password, that varies depending on provider, but we do have a way to do that for all the IDPs, for Octa, for Azure, for OneLogin, for Ping Federate, IBM, and now finally Google, as of Connect 2.5, will support the ability to create the local user account of the Mac using the same password as your Google password. So that's going to be a very nice add for our Google customers. What we just saw here was the Azure login again. I can bring it up for the other IDPs like Google, where, again, on boot, you're going to be asked to sign into the identity provider through a web view. If a user has to reset or change a password through the IDP, they're able to do that inside of the window. If you have multi-factor authentication required for your users, they're able to also satisfy those authentication challenges within the web view. Once the identity provider has given us the okay that they are a valid and authenticated user, that's when we go through the process of validating the local password. So let's take a quick look at Google. And the thing that's different now with Google is once I have signed in with my username and password, I am now just signed right in to the Mac. There is no secondary request for password entry for Google like there is with the other identity providers currently. If I were to sign in with Azure, I would once sign into the web view and then on a second screen be asked to sign in with my local account password so that we can validate that all the passwords match locally for Keychain, File Vault, and the login, Keychain, and File Vault, that they match the Azure password. With Google, we only ask for the password in that web view and never again a second time. The third example I have here is Octa. And again, the interface is a little bit different just because of the way that we're able to integrate with these different identity providers. It affords us some different workflows in user experience. So with Octa, a user is, again, simply just asked for their username and password once. If there is multi-factor authentication involved, we do account for that, and we do challenge the user to present that factor during the login. And again, this can be done just during account provisioning, or this can be done for every account sign-in. So let's validate that they're still a current user, that they have their factors in place. If we need to adjust permissions or anything on an ongoing basis to those local user accounts, we can do that. So that is login for at least 3 of the different identity providers. All of our different identity providers that we support, Ping Federate and IBM, would behave most like Azure. And OneLogin as well would behave like Azure in that case. On the menu bar side, we have an application, again, that just runs up in the menu bar, and it's meant to authenticate you at the beginning of your day. If I want to start my day on my Mac and I need to be able to sign into Octa so I can then get into other services, just by clicking Connect here, I'll be presented with the opportunity to log in with my credentials. It can save credentials in the keychain. It can automatically authenticate you if you need to. But once I click Sign In, then I am going to be given an active session inside of Octa, and I can start my day and go into my other services from there. If I have Connect integrated with Active Directory and Kerberos ticketing, then if you're on VPN, I'll just enable our connection here. When you are connected, we would automatically retrieve those Kerberos tickets then as well. On an ongoing basis, Connect is validating that account password for, in this case, Octa, is kept in sync with the local account password. And we can do that in the background on an ongoing background task. If at some point my Octa password were to expire, or a password were to be out of sync for whatever reason, because I tried changing it locally, or I changed my Octa password on a different device, users would get that notification inside of Connect. A notification center would let them know that the password is out of sync, and they would have the opportunity to resolve that by clicking on the notification and then authenticating once more, so we can resolve all those out of sync passwords. We want users to be able to use the same account password assigned through FileVault to get into their Mac and the rest of their services. The next big thing I think to talk about here, and probably our last topic, is Unlock, which is our new ability to authenticate to our Mac without having to enter a password. Certainly, the world is trying to move to passwordless authentication, that passwords are just more or less a poor means of protecting data. And there are all sorts of rules around passwords to make them more complex or to expire them on an ongoing basis. But they just aren't trustworthy, right? Because passwords can be shared, they can be compromised, and it's difficult to overcome that if we continue to rely on passwords. Now, the dream of a passwordless state isn't quite yet here on the Mac. There are certainly places that a password is required. FileVault is probably the most prominent example for passwords, at least usually being required. There are some caveats there, but there are other places in the system that encryption is more or less protected by a plain text password. So if users are expected to have a password, then we're probably requiring them to have a complex password. If they have a complex password, well, they've got to type in their password, 30, 40, 50 times a day for different reasons. You're trying to install software, change a setting, you're unlocking your Mac from sleep. What if we could just make it a little bit easier for them, where they could wake their Mac, unlock it without having to type a super long, complex password over and over, that they could just use the device that they already have on them, which is their phone. So we have an integration inside of Connect now where if you have an iPhone, you can have our unlock application on your phone in a managed and trusted state. The user uses Face ID, Touch ID, whatever biometrics are available to the phone to unlock the app. And by unlocking our app, we unlock the Mac. So I want to walk through just a quick example of getting that set up on the Mac side, and then actually walking through a quick passwordless authentication. So Unlock uses all the same configurations and applications that you would use for Connect. It's the same OpenID Connect operations. And for that reason, inside of Connect configuration, we're able to export the managed app config for Unlock. So you take those settings, go to Jamf Pro, go to your app record, and include the managed app config inside of the application record. That is something that's also inside of our interactive lab. So if you want to see what that's like, you can do so. So I have Unlock deployed to my device probably through VPP, and I have it in a state where I've got managed app configuration, so it knows exactly which identity provider to use. So as a user, you're seeing the phone here being shared on the left-hand side of my screen. When I tap on Get Started, I'll be asked to sign into the identity provider for the organization. I'm going to be asked for multi-factor authentication codes. And I say continue, and I've actually already signed into the IDP here, so I don't have to worry about multi-factor this time. And so I get for not clearing the cache. So walk through, there's going to be a lot of privacy requests, being able to use the camera on the device, location information, which is only for Bluetooth beaconing. We don't want to know location information. A few privacy requests. Once you get through that, you would open up the Connect application on your Mac and say pair devices. That brings up the option to pair a new device, at which point you will get presented a QR code. So I can hold the phone up in front of the QR code. And as far as the phone is concerned, the pairing is complete. Really simple on that side. On the Mac side, it just requires the administrator password to allow for the pairing of the user's identity certificate that's been created on the phone to be paired with the user account on the Mac. I say OK. And now we can see inside of paired devices that my phone is listed by name. I click finish or tap finish on my phone, and we are now in a state where I can use my phone to unlock my Mac. Double check that on the Mac side. You can go to your Connect menu. You can see that Enable Unlock is there. You can disable if you want to. Same with the checkbox inside of the paired devices list. So what can I actually use this for? Well, a few things. One, if you want to just double check that everything is paired and configured inside of system information underneath smart cards, you would see the smart card that's been created now for the user listed. If I want, as an end user, to authenticate to my Mac in the places that usually require a password, a quick example would be inside of System Preferences, Security, and Privacy. Click that padlock that's available in the bottom left-hand corner. Usually you'd be asked to enter your password. Instead of a password, now that I have my phone paired with my Mac, I instead get asked for a PIN, because the phone is presenting itself as a virtual smart card to the Mac, and smart cards tend to have PINs. As an admin, you get to decide if a PIN is required or not. If a PIN is required, then Unlock on your phone will actually display that 6-digit PIN, and the user will know exactly what to type in the Mac to get through the authentication prompt. If you don't require the PIN, you want to make it a little less burdensome for your users, then you just don't require it. The Mac is still going to ask for the PIN, but there's no value to be had. So you just leave that blank, you tap Unlock on the Mac, and on the phone, you're going to get a prompt for Face ID, Touch ID, whatever is available. And you're in, right? I've just now unlocked security and privacy on my Mac by looking at Unlock on my phone. I didn't have to touch my keyboard at all. The same is true if I were to say open up Terminal, right? So I say I need a secure shell, so I type sudo-s. Usually you'd be asked for your administrator password. I'm going to leave the prompt blank, hit return, and with Unlock open on my phone, I get prompted for Face ID, and now I have a secure shell on the Mac. This would all work as well if I wasn't in the application. Let's see, terminate. Hopefully you can see the phone still on the left-hand side, and I say sudo-s. Oops. Leave the pin field blank. You get a notification for Unlock on the phone. You can tap to accept that. Once you go in the app, you have a Face ID prompt. And again, same thing on the Mac side. So this works for anywhere there's a system prompt for the most part, system preferences, terminal. It also works when you're unlocking your Mac. Can't display that here because it would end the screen sharing session. But if you're waking your Mac from sleep, you can just use your phone to unlock your Mac. And what is now being added is the ability to log into your user account from the login window. So very beginning of the demo was being able to use Jamf Connect at the login window to sign into your Mac using your identity provider credentials. Well, what if you didn't want to use your identity provider credentials? You don't want to have to type in a password. You want to do this all passwordless. So I do have a quick video here of what is coming soon, and by the time that you see this, inside of Jamf Connect, which is we have a plugin at the login window to enable Jamf Unlock for user accounts. When that is enabled, then you are then able to use Unlock at the login window without having been signed in. So the big thing here is moving away from just unlocking and waking from sleep, but actually being able to sign in from the login window to a user account. This doesn't affect File Vault. You still need a password usually to get through File Vault, but once you're at the login window, if you want to start a user session, having Unlock paired with a user account would mean that you could sign into your user account from the login window using Unlock on your phone and not having to enter a password. So again, that is all stuff, or most of that should be available inside of the interactive demo. I definitely encourage you to check that out and see it for yourself. So thank you for watching the video here. Probably a lot of information at you, being thrown at you in a quick session, but hopefully you've got a nice overview of the workflows available and the integrations available inside of Jamf Connect, and it gives you a little bit more to go on and start implementing these features on your own. I look forward to hearing feedback from all of you, but really hope you enjoyed this session, and I hope you enjoy the rest of JNUC. Thank you so much.